So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Day one of the NFL Combine has come and gone, and with that being the case, of course, we're going to have our players that overachieved, our players that underachieved, and we're going to have a lot of news, a lot of rumors, and several key takeaways from day one. And today, we are going to be going over all of it. We have news and rumors from the Combine, we have news and rumors from back in Allen Park, and overall, we got a lot to talk about today. Some really interesting stuff and some different key events that could end up shaping Detroit's future. So with that being said, let's not waste any time. Let's get right in to news/rumor number one. It's a little bit of both, and that is the fact that the Detroit Lions in the city of Detroit itself is a finalist to host the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, we did talk about this a little while ago. It was kind of rumored that Detroit could be among one of the places to get a bid to host the 2024 Draft, but as of right now, we know that we are actually one of the three finalist cities to host the draft in 2024, which could be really interesting, as 2024 is when a lot of Lions fans expect the Lions to start getting really competitive and pushing for playoffs and maybe even Super Bowls. So just an interesting timeline there. The Lions could be hosting it in 2024, and the rumor part of this is actually that the Lions are the favorites, or Detroit, I guess the city, is the favorite to actually host the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, outside of that, we don't have a ton of news or information about it, but I did think it was something really interesting that the city of Detroit was the finalist, if not the favorite, to host the draft in 2024. And then the other piece of news to come out about the Detroit Lions is something that I did not know and that I did not hear about until this morning, and that is the rumor that the Washington Commanders called the Detroit Lions, they called Brad Holmes and asked about a potential trade offer for Jared Goff. Now, it's very common knowledge that the Washington Commanders are looking for a new signal caller in 2022, and it's very common knowledge that the Washington Commanders have been very open and vocal about finding that future signal caller. They called about Patrick Mahomes. I'm sure they've called about Deshaun Watson. If there is a team with a quarterback, the Washington Commanders have probably called that team about a potential trading scenario, right? They've called about Jared Goff, a rumor. They absolutely called about Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure they've called several other organizations as well. And I think this is a really interesting scenario, as the Lions cap-wise could realistically trade Jared Goff as early as this season, with his post June 1st cap hit being at just a $5 million dead cap number and saving over $26 million. Again, this is if they trade him after the June 1st deadline in 2022. So that would be, late into the offseason, right? That would be right before training camp happens, and the Lions would have to have a backup, would have to have an answer at quarterback for Jared Goff. But realistically, financially, it really isn't that unforeseeable, and it isn't that absurd of a scenario. The Lions couldn't get rid of Jared Goff as early as this offseason, I guess technically next preseason, and not take that significant of a cap hit. Now, the question, of course, becomes, should the Lions do this? Should they move on from Jared Goff this quickly? And what would the return have to be in order to move on from a admittedly very serviceable quarterback in the NFL? Maybe a video, maybe an idea for a future video. I don't have a ton of information right now, but it has been rumored that the Commanders did call about Jared Goff, and if the Lions are going to trade him, it's going to have to be after the June 1st deadline. But as of right now, Jared Goff seems to be on the market for the Washington Commanders to potentially make a trade, of course, for the right value. Now, getting on to the NFL Combine stuff, the reason that most of you are probably here, I wanted to mention the other two things first because I think they're very interesting scenarios or very interesting rumors to surround the Detroit Lions. And of course, if Jared Goff gets traded, that could really change the outcome in the future of the Detroit Lions. But I know the Combine is the new flashy thing, and I know that the NFL Combine is why you are all here. So let's get into the NFL Combine. The NFL Combine Day 1 was completed yesterday on March 3rd, where the quarterbacks and wide receivers ran, jumped through, and caught NFL footballs for NFL scouts, and they completed their part of the NFL Combine. Now, there was a couple rumors and a couple interviews that I thought were key to note if you're a Lions fan. The first off is Mark Brunell, the Lions quarterback coach, saying that he has confidence that if the Lions were to take a mobile quarterback, being Malik Willis, Sam Howell, or Bailey Zappe, that he could turn them into a Pro Bowl quarterback. Again, I think it's a little interesting that he's throwing out those specific names, leaving out guys like Desmond Ridder, leaving out names like Kenny Pickett, and leaving out names like Matt Corral. Some of them are more likely to fall to 32 or the second round than others, but the fact that he named the three guys at the Senior Bowl as guys that he thinks he could turn into Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks, I think speaks volumes on how well these guys performed at the Senior Bowl and how well the Lions group and how well this Lions coaching staff really got attached to these players, and how likely it is that if the Lions are going to take a quarterback, it's probably going to be one of those three guys. Now, I think the biggest interview from the other day was the Drake London interview. Drake London being a unanimous first round pick, a guy that's projected to go anywhere from 12 to 18, 12 to 20 in this year's NFL draft, somewhere in that middle to somewhere in that middle of the first round area is where a lot of people have Drake London going. And Drake London is a phenomenal player, a big body guy that run routes well, that has good speed, that just all around is a very complete NFL player with some good size to go up and high point the football and go out jump defenders to the ball. And he was a former teammate of current Detroit Lion Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, when interviewing Drake London about the potential of being drafted by the Lions and the potential about reuniting with his former teammate from USC and reuniting the Trojan duo, Drake London seemed very, very positive about it. Drake London saying that he grew up a Detroit Lions fan, that when he was growing up, Detroit was the team that he watched, was the team that he supported and wanted to go play for them when he was a kid, and that he would love to go reunite with his former teammate, go reunite with the Sun God. If you've been keeping up with him on Twitter or keeping up with him on interviews, they ask him, are you surprised that Amon-Ra St. Brown is, succeeding like he did in the NFL? Are you surprised? Are you shocked that Amon-Ra St. Brown is doing this well? And he said, no. That's the Sun God right there, and that's the best player I've ever played with. Right? Drake London wants to go reunite with his former teammate. He wants to go play for the Detroit Lions, which I think is really big because under Matt Patricia, you never really heard players saying, I want to go play for this team. I want to go play for Detroit. I want to be in the Honolulu Blue. I want the Lions to take me. You just didn't really hear that, and I think that speaks volumes to the fact that the Lions are changing this culture, and they're not just changing it from, okay, Matt Patricia sucks, Dan Campbell's a cool guy to work with, right? But they're changing it to a culture and a situation where players want to get drafted here. Players want to come here. And if Drake London's feeling that way, I would like to think, and I would probably guess, that a lot of other players are thinking in a very, very similar fashion. Now, the last piece of news for today, we're just going to go over a couple players whose stock rose at the NFL Combine and guys whose stock dropped a little bit at the NFL Combine. Starting off with the risers, there were more risers than fallers in this year's Combine, at least on day one. The big risers being Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, and actually one player that we have yet to speak about on this channel, Notre Dame alumni and former Notre Dame quarterback Jack Coan, I thought had a really good day at the Combine. He just looked really comfortable throwing the football, seemed to have really good accuracy on every single throw, didn't miss a lot of throws, gave a lot of catchable footballs to his wide receivers. I think Jack Coan is kind of I think this Combine, and I think after his pro day, Jack Coan is really gonna jump up into that 5th, 6th round of quarterbacks, right? Your guy that is probably not ever going to start for you, but a serviceable backup, somebody that's going to work for the practice squad, somebody that's going to work for that second string job in a very similar way that Bailey Zappi is going to do, the quarterback from Western Kentucky. So just another guy, an underrated player we have yet to talk about, to keep an eye on for the future and to keep an eye on for this NFL draft. Now, I also thought George Pickens had a very good day. I didn't really see a ton out of him as far as running routes and catching footballs. I don't know if he was out there a lot, but what I did see was his 40-yard dash, and being a 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver coming off a torn ACL and not even being 100% back and fully healthy and in game shape yet, running a 4.4 flat 40-yard dash was something that was super impressive, and for me, raised his draft stock even higher than it already was. Now, the fallers for today's combine were some of the players that a lot of Lions fans were actually really interested in. Treylon Burks, the wide receiver from Arkansas, somebody that has been compared to Deebo Samuel, didn't have a great day as far as testing numbers. He didn't jump as high or run as fast as a lot of people thought he would, running, I believe, a 4.55 40-yard dash, and just not having the explosive testing numbers that a lot of people thought he would have. Now, for me, this doesn't really change how I feel about Treylon Burks. I think he's still going to be a great wide receiver. I think he's still going to be a phenomenal player in the NFL. The game tape and the game speed tells me that he's fast. The game tape and game speed tell me that he's explosive. So I'm not worried about his combine. Same thing with David Bell. David Bell really, didn't run as fast as a lot of people thought he would, but as far as like running the routes, catching the footballs down the field from the quarterbacks, he looked pretty good and looked very solid. And then Sam Howell, I thought, was really inconsistent. He had a couple really nice throws where he put it right in the wide receiver's lap, right, dropped it right in the bucket, had a phenomenal throw down the field. There had some really good timing routes with the wide receivers, but at the same time, there was a lot of routes and there was a lot of throws where he just overthrew it or underthrew it. There was a lot of routes that were a little high. I thought he was inconsistent. Some of his good throws were really good, but some of his inconsistencies just really started to show up, and that's kind of how it is with every quarterback, right? Malik Willis had a couple overthrows. Malik Willis had one that sailed over a guy's head. Nobody was perfect at this year's NFL Combine, and a lot of that has to do with the timing, and a lot of that has to do with no chemistry being built with these wide receivers. But I felt like Sam Howell struggled a little bit more than the other quarterbacks. Not that he didn't have some really impressive throws, but he just didn't seem to have the same, he didn't seem to have as good or as consistent of a day, or at least didn't show off as much as guys like Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, and Kenny Pickett. So with all that being said, that is life for you guys today. I know it's a lot of information in one video, but this information I think is crucial to get out. I think the biggest news for today actually comes from the Washington Commanders rumor about potentially trading for Jared Goff, but of course the Combine is still a big part of this week's news and rumors. So that being said, that is life for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about this batch of news and rumors? Would you trade Jared Goff to the Washington Commanders? And if so, what price would you ask for? And how do you feel about the first day of the NFL Combine being over and getting another look at both Malik Willis, Sam Howell, the rest of this quarterback class, and a large majority of the wide receiver class? I'd be very curious to what you guys think. But with all that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions!